Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by author and publisher Kelly Collins. Kelly retired from the publishing industry. She owned a company in Nashville, Tennessee. She retired in 2021. She did a lot of traveling to work on her book. And after a loss nearly 5 years ago, she decided to swipe right for herself. So we're going to be talking about what she means by swipe right. I'm sure she's not talking about an iPhone, but Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much. I really am honored to be here.
Well, why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
All righty. Well, as you said, I was in the news publishing business. I also had a background in sales and marketing, and I really always enjoyed the interaction with people, in every one of my jobs. And being in the news business was especially rewarding because it was like the hometown newspaper of where I grew up. And it was just really fun. I'm also the mother of 3 grown daughters, and they are all, employed and have their own houses and their own insurance. It's pretty great to be that free stage in my life that feels like even past empty nesterhood. But I ended up selling my company in 2018. I had to stay for 3 years. And so in October of 21, I retired, and I decided to travel for a year or a year and a half and just kind of explore my new life. I had gotten divorced in 2019. And so it was just really I was ready for my comeback story. And I could throw a bunch of baseball metaphors at you right there. I was ready to hit a home run. And while I was traveling, I went to a lot of really cool places. But while I was traveling, I really was reflecting on what had helped me get going again. What was it that had happened in my life that was helping me be happy again? And because my divorce was fairly devastating. And so I really wanted to take my power back. I really wanted to find my new self. And I started realizing as I'm traveling, because I was traveling solo, I had a lot of time to think, and I started thinking about my friends and the advice that had been given to me along the way. And also I was kind of paying attention to how I had accepted that advice, or how maybe it really didn't hit me till 6 months later, what they were saying or how it applied to me. And so by the time that year of travel was over, I was ready to kind of sit down and write it out. I wanted to tell that story because it's a story of redemption and resilience, but it's really also about friendship. So, and every chapter in my book is an interview with a different friend. And some of them are friends I made all over the world. And so it's really interesting, all of their different takes on life. And we talk about some serious subjects like anger and forgiveness. And then of course I end it with talking about online dating, which is such a crazy world in your 50s.
Well, tell us about publishing company that you own. Tell us what you guys did.
So we were really that kind of small town Clark Kent, newspaper. And it started off in my hometown of Brentwood, Tennessee. And we were pretty much the paper of record because the larger Gannett-owned newspaper had downsized with all these layoffs. And so we were really the only ones covering our hometown at that point. And after about 3 years, we expanded and we did our second site. And then every year after that, we started a new site, and we grew the company to be 9 different sites. And so we were really covering a lot of little towns and all around Middle Tennessee. And most of them were in a county just south of Nashville. some of the little towns were around Nashville and kind of in that metropolitan area, but our specialty was hometown news. Like we covered the city council, we covered the beer board, we covered the planning commission, but what really put us on the map was covering high school sports. And I love sports. And so it was really fun. I mean, for the first year when it was just me and my partner, I was actually the football reporter, if you can imagine that. But we had a lot of help. Everybody was excited for us. Everybody loved that their kids were in the newspaper. And it was a really fun time building that. I love to build. I love to create new products. I loved the whole process of that. And I always found it really interesting too, how my previous jobs, without me ever knowing that they were preparing me for this, that they were really an integral part of my being able to help build this business. It was just a really, really beautiful experience to be so involved in the community and really to be able to give back and help the community. Because we were having success, we had the ability to help all the nonprofits in the area. And I eventually started getting involved and being on the board of a few of them. And it was just, I don't know, it's a really good time in my life. And I appreciate all the support that we had.
Well, you talked about when you were traveling, you went to some cool places. So tell us about some of those cool places that you went to.
I would love to. Well, way back in 2018, when it became apparent that I was going to be getting a divorce, I did this amazing spiritual hike. They call it a pilgrimage, but it's called the Camino de Santiago. And you start off in the French Pyrenees, and it's just you and your backpack and a bunch of other hikers. And you go up and over the French Pyrenees and into Spain, and it's a 500-mile hike. And this particular route, there's about 250,000 people a year who do it. So there's a lot of services along the way that help the hikers, which when you're on this trail, they call you a pilgrim, which is kind of cool. And you stay in hostels and you're walking somewhere between 10 and 15 miles a day. And it's just a really incredible experience because everybody else that you're engaging with is also there for the same reason. You know, they're there to do that 500-mile hike. They're there because they have something in their life, some kind of question they need answered or some kind of grief to deal with. And so that was really the beginning of my solo travel. And over this past year, I hiked another Camino in Portugal. And so that was not as big. That was about 200 miles, but that was a great experience. Went to Buenos Aires and I stayed there for about 5 weeks. And I took tango lessons because that's like the birthplace of tango. And I think that was a very challenging experience for me, but I was really proud of myself, how I got my courage up and I put myself out there, and I met people from all over the world. It's amazing how people come, where they're coming from just to learn tango. And so it was a really intricate community because there's so many different languages and so many different cultures, but they're all coming there for that one thing. And so that was really fun. And then after that, I left and went to southern Argentina and I hiked in Patagonia. And I did that for 5 weeks. And then I came home to the United States, changed out all my gear and took off to Portugal. And I saw Lisbon and Porto and southern Portugal. And then I did that hike again and ended up in Spain. And then I hiked around in Spain for a while. I came home for the summer because my oldest daughter was getting married in the Boston area. And that was a really fun summer. And then I took off for Italy for the month of August with one of my friends who had just retired. And so she was ready to go play. And so that was fun because I did all that solo travel. And then I ended that year of travel with my friend Angie, and we had a great time. And I love that the way travel enriches my life, and it helps me understand different cultures, and I meet so many people. I'm very, very outgoing. So I'm always excited to meet new people from different countries. And typically, if you're traveling solo, people will reach out to you and say, "Hey, where are you from?" because they see you sitting by yourself or something. So I find that people can be really friendly and kind, even if they have very little English. And I definitely didn't have Italian or Spanish along my or Portuguese along my travels. So, but it's been an important part of my growth and my comeback story of from divorce. And I really encourage people to do it. It's just been great.
Okay, your phrase swipe right after you suffered your significant loss, you decided to swipe right. So tell us what that phrase means and how you came up with it.
Well, the term swipe right is really kind of not a joke, but a kind of a takeoff of the dating apps. On some of the dating apps, when you're doing online dating and you're trying to meet people, you swipe right if you choose someone, you swipe left if you don't choose them. And so in the book, I explain the term, but then I say what I really want you to do is to swipe right for yourself. Because when you've been through a big life change, whether it's divorce or a job change or a job loss or death of a spouse or a child, I mean, all of these big life changes are talked about in the book. But you have to go through a period of time where you're choosing yourself and you have to choose to heal and work through whatever you're going through. And every situation is different. Every person is different. But if you just kind of charge forward into the dating world without working through your heartache and getting your heart happy again. And I think that's where your power is really working through all of that and continuing to do that. Always be working on yourself, always wanting to improve and talk to people and read books and just kind of be in self-improvement mode. And I think that is where you find the key to happiness. And I think when you go through all those different types of big life change, what I was seeing is when I was doing all these interviews, because I interviewed 10 people, and almost all of them talked about getting to a place where they were stuck. And so that's why the subtitle of the book is The Power to Get Unstuck. And so I try to tie all of that together with, choosing yourself and then looking for ways to get unstuck. And my friends in each chapter give a piece of advice that helps the reader get through whatever they're going through. And each chapter is very clearly defined, whether it's grief or anger or forgiveness or self-love. I think a lot of people who go through divorce or betrayal of some sort have a hard time loving themselves or seeing their self-worth. And so that becomes an important part of getting unstuck. And so, but yeah, I mean, the whole swipe right thing is just more of a play on words, but it's from a dating app. And I just wanted people to kind of have that visual of swiping right for themselves and choosing to get themselves into a better frame of mind.
So, how did your friends react to these open and revealing interviews? Were they nervous at all?
Yes, they were all nervous. And so, right up front, I tell the readers that I told the interviewees, my friends, that they would be anonymous. And I wanted them to feel free to share their stories. It's been, a rough ride for them. I mean, two of the ladies I talked to, they actually lost their spouses. And so it's a pretty traumatic thing to talk about. And they want to be careful how they talk about it because they want to be encouraging. They worked through it and they want to help the reader. And I think that's what was so beautiful about it is that's how this book just started becoming about friendship and the discussions that we have and how open we were about that. And so one of the funny things in the book is because I'm from Nashville, I let all of the ladies pick a country music star name that would be their alias for their anonymous interview. And so people have gotten a kick out of that with, Loretta for Loretta Lynn and Dolly Parton. And sometimes those names really lined up with my friend too, but they really, they were very generous with their time. And the other thing I did that to try to help them be comfortable was I let them have any kind of editing rights that they wanted. Some people said, I don't need to see it. I trust you. Some people really edited. They wanted to go back and take out, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Or one person was, worried that she'd identified her child a little too much. And so, I was very open to working with them and working through their any concerns that they had. But yeah, I think it was hard for them, like it was hard for me. But we had that common goal to help the reader.
How
I
did you
think
come
our
up with the
friendship.
concept of interviewing these different people?
Good question. It came about over time. So while I was in Italy, I was kind of laying out the book, and I was just knew I didn't want it to be all about me, because my story is just one story, and I don't know, it really wanted it to be about how people helped me more than anything. So I started asking them, you know, I'm not looking for a co-author, but because none of them would have wanted to do that, but I would love to sit down and just have a conversation with you. And so I asked two of my closest friends to do that up front and just try it out, see how it felt. And I started running the idea by some fellow authors, and they were like, yeah, that's really original. Like, I don't remember ever seeing a book like that out there. And I believe the fact that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm just this real person who had a real heartbreak. And so are they. So are my friends. And I think that's just how I have processed my grief and heartache with them, was talking it out. And that we just, kind of have those moments where you let it all hang out, and the other person's there for you. And, and I had been there in their tough times too. So I knew their stories, and yeah, it just kind of evolved. I tried it out with a couple of people, and I ran the concept by other authors that I knew, and got positive feedback. And they enjoyed doing the interviews more than they thought they would. And I just did it over Zoom so we could see each other, because we were all one person's in South Africa, one person's in Sweden, another in Canada, and I'm not in Tennessee anymore. So my friends in Tennessee, so it was all done remotely too, which is just such a miracle that we can do things like this these days. It's really quite amazing. Really grateful for all the technology that has allowed all of this to come to fruition.
Well, what is your favorite book? You talk about reading books as one of your self-help methods. What's your favorite book?
I have a few. I did a workshop called Calling in the One. It's by Catherine Woodward Thomas. And you can buy the book anywhere. It's pretty well known. And she also has a workbook that goes with it. But it's 49 days, so 7 weeks every day of being present in this workshop. It's only like 10 or 15 minutes a day, but it's really important to kind of go all the way through at once. And I ended up finding it on this website called mindvalley.com, which is basically a personal development website. And there's all kinds of workshops that you can do on there. But I did that one this past summer, and it really helped me focus in on what it was that I did want, because my life is so completely different than it was 5 years ago. And I have all of this freedom now. And as wonderful as that sounds, it's also challenging, because you want to stay focused and you want to have a meaningful life and you want to have a life purpose. And so her workshop helps you through all of that, but it also helps you define what you want in your next partner. And that was really important to me. So Calling in the One has just been integral in how I've gotten to where I am now. And it really informed some of my writing in my book too, just because of the mindset that it gave me. And then I really enjoy Brene Brown, most of her books. I'm listening to Atlas of the Heart right now. And I love her Daring Greatly series. She has a wonderful talk on Netflix called Call to Courage. And I actually quote her in my book a few times, but she really opened my eyes to a new way of thinking about vulnerability and courage, and really how we can support each other in that. But really letting yourself be seen and being vulnerable, like writing this book and telling my story, extremely vulnerable, but how much you get back for that. And, it's vulnerability is really courage. And when you put yourself out there and you let yourself be seen, the rewards are quite great. I mean, if you're open to the love that can come back and the support, then I think it's worth it. And she taught me that. So Brene Brown is really amazing. Also reading in my book, I think it's 15 different references that my friends mentioned in the interviews. And so I'm working my way through those books. I've read The Secret and The Magic by Rhonda Byrne. And then I'm reading right now the Think and Grow Rich, which was written in the 1800s. And it's pretty fascinating, but it's all about law of attraction and positive mindset and things like that. And when you're an author, you're basically running your own business. Your book is your business. And so I'm really trying to kind of have that business mindset and be very proactive and doing things like this and meeting new people.
Do you have any current or upcoming projects that you're working on that people need to know about?
Well, I am writing. I have a series of 5 books that I want to write, and the swipe right effect was the first one. The one I'm working on now is called The Traveling Effect, and I really want to take this last year of solo travel that I had the blessing to experience, and I want to kind of talk that out with the book on what that provided me personally and the different experiences that I had meeting people. And I think that if somebody has not ever traveled by themselves, then hope that this will encourage them that it's actually okay and it's safe and it can be really fun and rewarding. Because I think, I was married 31 years. I hadn't traveled by myself before. I'd always been taking care of my kids and been traveling with my husband. And before that, I was with my family, and I traveled with my family as a kid growing up. So I think I'd just like to debunk the myth that it's a scary thing to do. And so that's my next book is called The Traveling Effect. And I'm really excited about it. And the other thing I'm working on is starting a new podcast, and that will be the name of the book, The Swipe Right Effect. And so I've been trying to line up guests for that. And I'm getting so excited about it. Got all the microphones and all of that. And then lastly, I am creating a workbook to go along with my book, because within the book, every chapter, there is an empowerment practice. And so it's basically an exercise to do if that's the part of your life that you want to work on, whether it's creating a vision for yourself, doing a vision board, or chapter 2, we do a resume of your life, and not about your work, but about your life. Like, what are the things you've done that you're proud of and that fed you and gave you joy, and really focus on what's your purpose in life. And so there's all kinds of exercises like that I want to put into a workbook so that someone has a place to journal and write about that. And then I'm hoping to turn that into basically a webinar series where anytime somebody finds it and they want to do it right then, right now, because that's how I was with calling in the one, that it'll be available online to them with video series and the workbook and the book, and all of it goes together. So I got lots of projects and it's all so much fun to me.
Okay, well, so people can keep up with everything that you're up to, throw out your contact info, website, or
Yeah,
anything like that.
my website is ckcollins.co, and my email's on there. I do have a forum that I'm hoping people will join and have the discussion where people can ask questions of me. I'll always be monitoring it and answering questions. And then I just created a tip sheet called 10 Ways to Get Unstuck. And that is just a free paper that I wrote that I want to offer people who are interested. Not sure they want to read a whole book yet, but they can get this tip sheet called 10 Ways to Get Unstuck. And that will also be on my website at ckcollins.co.
We'll close this out with some final thoughts. Maybe if there was something I forgot to touch on that you would like to talk about, it, just any final thoughts you got for the listeners.
final thought is, if someone's feeling stuck in their life and they're just not happy for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be something dramatic, but it could just be, you're not happy with your job, or you're worried about your kids, or you broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend. If you're feeling stuck and you don't know which way to go, I just want you to know you have the power. You have the power because you have the choice. You have a choice to make a change. And once you decide to do that, and once you decide to go forward with your life, you'll find the inspiration. You'll find your way, and reach out and talk to somebody if you can. But I think it's sometimes you just don't believe or feel you have the power, but every single one of us does. And I want people to understand that and to know it in their hearts.
Ladies and gentlemen, ckcollins.co. Please be sure to check her out. Check out her book. And when the rest of the books come out, make sure you get those. Please be sure to follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible, especially those who are feeling stuck. If you have any guest suggestions or topic suggestions, cjackson102@cox.net is where you can send them. And I'd like to take this time to send a special thanks to all of you that listen to the show. There's millions of podcasts out there. You could have chose any one of them, but you chose to be here, and I thank you. And I also thank Miss Collins for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.